Hi, Vintage Stereo Buff here. I bought another new amplifier. This is an Audioromy model 808A. It's a high-end vacuum tube stereo integrated amplifier. This one is a Class A single-ended amp. It has FU 29 power tubes and 4 of these smaller 6N3 tubes here. These are all the same. I'm not sure what they are. These are drivers or preamps. 2 of each probably. Anyway, it's a little smaller than my other amp. I think it's rated at 30 watts per channel. And it has a cage that fits over it like the other one to protect the tubes. But I actually like the looks of it better without the cage. I'll turn it over and you can see. So we can see the inside. On my other one is a amp was the KT88 was it was point-to-point wiring. All of it was point-to-point, which is one small circuit board. This one actually has a couple of circuit boards in it. And the way on this one, you can see these 4 tubes, the smaller tubes, they're mounted in a socket on this circuit board. It has one PCB board here for all these preamp tubes and driver tubes. A little different than my other amp. And then a circuit board here for the power supply. It looks like it has quite a bit of caps on the power supply. But anyway, it looks well made. Looks like I'm not sure how good some of these caps are. Some of them are good brands and some are, I'm not sure. But anyway, it looks like it's pretty well built. And, so now I'll go put the bottom back on and get it hooked up to my speakers and play it, see what it sounds like, and hook it up to my meters, check for distortion, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, well, I got my amp put together, plugged in, hooked it all up, tried to use it, and it would not turn on. The indicator light wouldn't come on. I checked my cord, it was fine, and I used a different cord, it didn't work either. And so I took the bottom off again. These come 220 or 110, and they're supposed to fix them for you when they leave the factory. Supposedly this was set and wired to run on 120 volts, 60 hertz, but it wouldn't work. So I took my voltmeter and I checked inside of here, and the voltage would come through this wire, but I wasn't getting anything through the other side. And these 2 wires here were connected right at this point. Well, this point doesn't go to anything. This terminal does not connect to any of these other terminals or the ground. It's just a dead lug. I don't understand what it's supposed to be. But anyway, no juice was getting through to the amp. And then I found this one over here. This leg is supposed to be hooked to one side of the one leg of the hot. It wasn't hooked to anything. They were supposed to hook these 2 wires down to this terminal here, not this terminal here. So I turned it all back on again and I touched these wires to the other terminal. The amp come on and it appears to work fine. So I'm going to now get out my solder gun and put these wires back where they're supposed to be, and then I'll get my amp to work and I won't have to send it halfway around the world to China again and pay shipping to have them fix something that they should have done right in the first place. But if an average consumer bought this, they'd just be fucked. It's a good thing I know what I'm doing and I know how to correct these little problems, or I'd be waiting another month or more to get this thing back. I'm not very happy with that. I was very happy with the other amp, and I hope when this problem is fixed and I get it up and running, I don't incur any more problems. But anyway, I'll get back to you after I get this done. Vintage Stereo Buff out. Well, I got my amplifier fixed. The power input problem. I got it fixed and put back together, and I got it hooked up and hooked to this little distortion meter and hooked up. I'll play something on YouTube. It's working fine now. Turn it on. As you can see, even at regular lower volume settings, the 1% distortion meter is clicking on. It's not turned up much, but it's the 1%, but it has 1% distortion. It's rated at 0.5% distortion or less, but this meter detects 1%, and it's 1%. Kind of flickers, so it's right around 1%. So they lied to me. And as far as power output goes, but one thing I noticed on my other KT88 push-pull amp, it was rated at 1% distortion or less, and it did the same thing when I first turned it on with the new tubes. Even at lower volumes, the 1% distortion light was flickering off and on, so it had a little more distortion than it was supposed to. But what I did notice was after about 30 or 40 hours on the tubes, then I hooked the meter back up on the KT88, and then that distortion light doesn't hardly ever come on anymore. So the distortion on my other amp went down after the tubes had broke in. So I'm hoping that the same thing will happen on these, because right now the distortion light is coming on even at moderate volume levels. So once these tubes break in, it may have a little bit better distortion figures. And I'll get back to you on that. I'm going to go ahead and unhook it and move it over to the other workbench where I can hook it up to a sub and check the maximum power output. So for now, Vintage Stereo Buff out. Okay, I'm back. I have my distortion meter set up and my power meter. I'm going to try a 40 hertz sine wave. And so here we go. Okay, that's at 29 watts at 7.5 ohms. But the distortion, I think, was past 1%. I'm going to reset it. We'll do this again. Try to catch it a little before. Okay. There at 15 watts, it's just starting to show 1% distortion. So I get 15 watts with less than 1%. And I can't get the clipping light to go, okay. Okay, it clips. The clipping light goes off at 33 watts at 7.5 ohms. It's rated to do 35 watts at 8 ohms. But that's supposed to be 1% distortion or less. But that was actually clipping. So it does about 17 watts or so, 15 to 17 at 1% or less. So it's not as low a distortion as what they claim, but it still sounds really good. I can't notice any distortion in my ears, so I guess that's okay. So it's a pretty nice little amp. After I break my tubes in for 20 to 30 hours, I'll retest it again. The distortion figures will probably go down a little bit. Okay, vintage stereo buff out.